Bueno, damas y caballeros, continuando con nuestro café con leche de esta mañana. Actualmente la temperatura en Lancaster 57 grados, nuestros amigos de York en 56 grados. La alta del día de hoy, Héctor, apenas tocando, sobrepasando los 70 grados, o un poco más que el día de ayer. Estaremos hoy en 74, 56 grados para la baja esta noche. Y mañana sí, un poco más frío, 70 grados. La posibilidad de lluvia del día de hoy es de un 20% aquí en nuestra área, así que podemos ver una posibilidad de lluvia
un
aquí con
pasarito aquí
nosotros.
allá puede ser que durante
Sobre
el día,
todo
sí.
en horas de la noche, cuando recuerden que hoy las temperaturas van a sobrepasar los 70, mañana no. Entonces, algo entre ese frío y ese calor. Vamos a ver ese cambio de temperatura. Entonces, bueno, vamos a comenzar nuestro segmento de diabetes, auspiciado por Capital Blue Cross. Con esa intención tenemos aquí con nosotros a la nutricionista Danielle Masland del Hospital Heart of Lancaster. Aquí con nosotros, Danielle. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. We have this cycle of shows about diabetes that we are trying to, generate some talk amongst our community about an illness that certainly affects the Latino community at a great rate. And we have kind of known in depth diabetes. We've talked a lot about what it is, what it does to our bodies, and so on and so forth. But there's of course, one of the things that has been repeated over and over and over to us is that what we either guarantees that we're going to suffer from diabetes, or if we're already diabetic, that we are going to have the complications, the onset of complications a lot quicker. So let's talk about diet and diabetes. Why don't we talk first about diet and the prevention of diabetes? What can we do? Because we know that some factors that we can't change, like genetics and our race or national origin, which are things that might predispose us more to suffer. What can we do to, even though we may have those tickets in our hand, to not catch them?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, the diet for prevention of diabetes and is kind of similar to what I would suggest for anyone that also has diabetes. And the basic thing that I would say would be to start with a carbohydrate reduction, reducing the amount of carbohydrates that you're eating, making sure that they're spaced evenly throughout the day.
Now, we hear that a lot, and reduce your carbohydrates. What are carbohydrates?
Good question. There's basically 3 different food groups that are really going to contribute to your carbohydrate load for the day. The first one would be starches, so bread, pasta, rice, wraps, tortillas, potatoes, corn, those sorts of foods. They're very dense, very high carbohydrate load. And then you've also got fruits, which, is a natural source of sugar. And I think there's a kind of a misconception out there that you can eat as much fruit as you want because it's healthy. And while fruit is healthy, it's important to remember that it's pure sugar, so it's definitely going to affect your blood sugar levels. Mm-hmm. And then the last group would be dairy, not so much cheese, but milk and, yogurt made from cow's milk, because it has lactose in it. That's also going to contribute to your carbohydrates for the day.
So basically, carbohydrates are foods that are rich on sugar, one way or the other.
Yeah, you could kind of put it that way. Carbohydrates and sugar, those words get used synonymously, and it's a situation where all sugar is carbohydrate, but not all carbohydrate is sugar. Mm-hmm. But any carbohydrate that you eat eventually gets broken down in your body to basic sugar, to glucose. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of one and the same.
They're kind of one and the same, either because they have the sugar or because they can be converted in the body into
right.
sugar.
Yep.
Correct. So it's basically foods that our body uses for pure energy. Mm-hmm. And when our body doesn't need the energy, what does it do with it? Store it.
It stores it, absolutely. Yeah, we can only store, they say, about 120, 150 grams of glucose in your liver. That's where it gets stored. And so any that you take in beyond what you can store, our body's going to convert that to fat because it's a more efficient way for us to store it as energy.
Okay, so, and then we're not only... It seems that this diet that you're telling us is also one to maintain weight.
Absolutely.
It's one that we should follow to try to keep our bodies healthy in terms of our weight and fat proportions.
Absolutely. Even, people that don't have diabetes, I generally recommend that people reduce their carbohydrate intake just because, as a country, we tend to eat way too many of them. They're cheap, they're shelf stable, so they're an easy food to get and to have around.
And so we need to stop it. So the first thing that you would recommend is to reduce our carbohydrate.
Mm-hmm.
What else would you say is something that...
I think protein is very important, and it's important that protein can work in conjunction with the carbohydrate that you're eating. Whenever you eat carbohydrate by itself, your body is going to have a spike in blood sugar and thus a spike in insulin. And insulin is a hormone that makes us store fat, so we want to prevent that from spiking up. And so if you eat protein with carbohydrate, it's going to slow down how quickly the carbohydrate's absorbed into your bloodstream, and it's going to keep your blood sugar more even throughout the day. It's going to keep you full for a longer period of time. So it's really going to help to reduce the effect that your carbs are having on your blood sugar.
So I'm going to ask you the same thing, because a lot of times we hear, exactly, eat more protein, and people are like, what is it? What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go to the pharmacy and buy some protein supplements? What are proteins?
Protein foods, meat, poultry, fish, eggs, cheese has a lot of protein in it. Greek yogurt's become very popular. That has a good amount of protein, or cottage cheese as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, a protein shake or a protein bar. Those are definitely options. But if we're just gonna, increase the amount.
But we're talking about our meals specifically, not something that we eat, throughout the day as a snack or something like that. We're talking about what's on our plate, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
So, any type of meat or fish would be good. Or in the morning, it can be breakfast. In the morning, it could be eggs for breakfast, or, sausage, bacon. Those are going to provide you protein, and a lot of people...
I like you because you're counting bacon as a protein, not as
am.
fat.
I was just going to kind of get there.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
She's going to get there.
This nutritionist.
She's going to get into the fat, too.
A lot of people are kind of shocked to hear me say that, but I'm less concerned about a person's fat consumption than I would be about their carbohydrate consumption. So the diet that I'm usually kind of encouraging people to do, it's lower carb and a little bit higher on the fat, and that's okay. That's actually a lot better for us.
Is this a new thing? Because we have been hearing for the past 15 years about low fat.
Yeah, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot with that one back in the 80s when they decided that fat was the enemy. And so what the food manufacturers did was they took all of the fat out of our food products, and what they did to still make it taste good was replace it with sugar, which in turn, that's really when obesity rates kind of started skyrocketing. But food still had to taste good, or else people wouldn't buy it. So they kind of filled everything with sugar and made it really low fat, which was kind of the worst thing that we could have done.
Okay, well,
so
perfecto. Yo creo que nos hace falta un recap en estos momentos
Señor.
en español, porque esto es tremenda noticia esta que estamos escuchando acá. Lo primero que nos está
He's so happy
diciendo
with that news.
Danielle Maslan, quien es una dietista con BMI, que está en el Heart of Lancaster, aquí en nuestra área, hablándonos sobre cuál es la dieta ideal para para reducir el riesgo de sufrir la diabetes, o si somos diabéticos. Y lo primero que ella dijo es la reducción de carbohidratos. ¿Qué son los carbohidratos? Son los almidones, como el maíz, la papa, el pan, la pasta. Esos son alimentos muy ricos en carbohidratos. Las tortillas. En cuanto a la reducción de esos. Nosotros, rice would be considered a carbohydrate in this whole, which is a staple of our, and unfortunately, white rice. El arroz blanco sería una de las cosas que necesitamos reducir ampliamente de nuestra dieta, debido a que estos alimentos o las frutas, una de las cosas que mencionó son las frutas
cargadas de azúcar,
donde siempre pensamos que las frutas, por ser naturales y por ser son saludables, entonces podemos comer todas las frutas
se nos han dicho por años de que podemos comer todas las frutas que queramos porque es lo más saludable, que sé cuándo, pero según
resulta que son muy ricas en azúcar, y por supuesto para la prevención de la diabetes o si somos diabéticos, son uno de los alimentos que tenemos que tratar de reducir porque son altos en azúcar. Esto no solamente ella lo recomienda para la diabetes, sino en nuestra dieta en general, porque nuestro organismo solamente puede guardar X cantidad de energía en el hígado, que es el lugar donde se guarda la energía necesaria. Una vez que el hígado está sobrecargado de energía, ¿cómo guardamos esa energía? En forma de grasa alrededor de nuestro cuerpo. Y es cuando vienen los problemas de obesidad y, por supuesto, la mayor posibilidad de sufrir de diabetes. Entonces, ella nos está diciendo que definitivamente esta es una de las cosas que tenemos que tratar de reducir. Por supuesto, una de las cosas que dijo es acompañar cualquier ingesta de carbohidratos, de este grupo de alimentos, con la ingesta de proteínas. Porque cuando se comen los carbohidratos solos, entran demasiado fácil a la sangre, entonces crean una demanda mayor por insulina para el control del azúcar en la sangre. Pero cuando se consumen junto con la proteína como que regula la entrada de los carbohidratos al torrente sanguíneo. Y entonces esto ayuda a la regulación y ella ha incluido
la tocineta. Mire la cara, señoras y señores. Mire la cara de nuestro compañero Ulaneta.
Ella ha incluido la tocineta en la proteína.
Queso, que me encanta el queso.
Y son una de las cosas que ella ha dicho que en los años 80, cuando decidimos de que la grasa era el enemigo de nuestro cuerpo, los fabricantes de comida decidieron simplemente quitar la grasa, pero para que los alimentos supieran bien, ¿qué fue lo que agregaron? Azúcar. Es decir, que ella dice, para traducir la expresión que dijo, que nos pegamos un tiro en nuestro pie, quitando la grasa de la comida y sustituyéndola por azúcar, que ha sido uno de los problemas. So, Danielle, low carb diet, get some protein in there. Of course, we're always using the palm of our hands, kind of like an idea of how much protein we're going to eat. Is it my hand open like this? Or how?
Just the palm of your hand is supposed to be about 4 ounces.
Just the palm. I don't include the fingers on that.
No, don't include the fingers. I always kind of tell people, though, when you're modifying your diet, you can keep your protein intake about the same as it is now. We're going to cut back on carbs and give a little bit more in the fat.
You don't want it to keep it about the same as Hector and I.
Wow, Danielle, this is a very little portion for me. Look.
That's a little portion for you.
Yeah, well, it is what it should be, right? It's
4
the palm
ounces.
of our hands.
I would say, getting that much at least at each meal.
And of
is
course,
a good
this
thing.
is pretty good because each of us has a different size. And then it kind of goes with what our size and weight is, what we're going to eat. Sorry for those of you that have a little hand. But then, and what else? What is the next step? So we talk about carbohydrates and proteins. What other elements in our diet should we try to regulate or enhance?
I think something that's important is making sure, especially if you already have diabetes, in order to make sure that your blood sugar is stable throughout the day, that if you're going to go long periods of time between meals, make sure that you're planning ahead for that and including a snack. If you're because of your schedule that it's 6-7 hours between 2 meals, make sure that you're taking a snack.
What should that snack be?
Again, this is where I would say something that either is protein or is, if you're having carbohydrate, make sure there's protein with it. So nuts like almonds and peanuts, that's a great one. Hard-boiled eggs is a great source of protein, and it's fairly portable. String cheese is one of my favorites because it's protein, low carb, and it's easy and fun. Veggies with a dip like hummus is a good one.
But a lot of times we see a lot of people with their snack being carrots or we think it's healthy, and then we have a bunch of grapes and things like that, and what we're ending up having is sugar.
Yeah, carrots I wouldn't be as concerned about. It'd be good to pair that with a dip like hummus that has some protein to it, or a Greek yogurt-based dip. For something like fruit, a lot of people tend to do just fruit, or banana is one that I see all the time because it's so easy. It's portable.
Yeah.
You take it with you. Banana is the starchiest fruit. And if you think about it, it makes sense. There's not really water in banana when you compare that to, melon or berries. Those are lower carb fruits, whereas a banana is just basically pure carbohydrate. So
that's why it's so good.
Delicious, yeah.
Wow. So a banana is not necessarily your best snack.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's the best one.
I snacked twice yesterday. Guess what I had?
A banana.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. They're portable. They're easy.
Yeah.
You can have them in your office. It's very easy for you to just have a banana. And really, this is a great way to hear these news, because we think that when we are in the produce aisle in the supermarket, that everything that we are surrounded by only healthy foods. That we're surrounded by things that we can eat as many as we want of.
Yeah.
Danielle,
And it's not necessarily so.
You mentioned the bacon and the cheese, but not every day, right?
I mean, I think it's fine to have fat every day. I do think it's good to focus a little bit more on your unsaturated sources of fat. So, like nuts and seeds, peanut butter, avocado, olive oil. Those are, good, rich sources of heart-healthy fats.
Now, what about organic peanut butter? Does it make it better or not?
Usually organic just makes it more expensive. So that's kind of a personal choice if you want to go that way.
Well, but in terms of the and I'm sorry, I said organic, I should said natural.
Okay.
Natural peanut butter.
The most important thing about peanut butter, is to make sure that there's not trans fat in it. It's kind of an interesting thing when they reduce the fat in products. If it's a plant-based fat that they're reducing, a lot of times it will be then trans fat that they switch it to. So that's why a lot of times margarine or peanut butter, you don't want to go with those reduced fat options if there's trans fat in them. Whereas something like cream cheese or sour cream, when they reduce the fat of an animal fat, they don't need to use trans fat. So that's more of I'd rather have people reduce the fat there.
Danielle, you're going to have to come here every day and look at what we're eating and tell us, because there's a lot of things that we have talked to many people about what to eat and what not to eat here many times, but very seldom have we heard it in a way that we can understand it this much.
Finally, we'll find a good friend.
Yes, and she said
good. I'm
bacon.
happy
And she
to
said,
come back.
and she said bacon is good. She said bacon is good. So
Cheese also.
yeah, in moderation, correct?
Moderation.
Everything in moderation.
Everything in moderation. And it does seem that you're taking into account here that we're not couch potatoes either, correct?
Exercise, physical activity, very important component to this equation as well.
Because you cannot eat a healthy amount of fat without exercise. You cannot be having the bacon every day if you're just sitting and just digesting it while playing video games or watching,
Well, I mean,
I don't know, General Hospital.
there's nothing really I would say you could eat all day and not need to
Not
exercise.
need
We
to
always need to exercise.
And of course, especially those suffering from diabetes, talk to your doctor about what your exercise regimen can and should be.
Absolutely.
And if you have any health limitations with that. But we want to thank you for this. Any final thoughts, anything that we have left out in terms of this diet that you're recommending to us?
I don't think anything that we've left out. I think along with the exercise, it's important to note that that's something that moving muscle will take up glucose much easier than a sedentary muscle. So if anyone's having difficulty regulating blood sugars, a really easy thing to do is to walk 10 minutes after each meal. And that's really going to help to control your blood sugar. And, throughout the day, then if you have 3 meals, you've got 30 minutes of walking in there. That's a fairly easy way to kind of implement some exercise.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Danielle.
You're welcome.
Don't leave the bacon out so long as it's a healthy portion. But it is. I would have to say the first time that I hear bacon as protein, for the longest time it's bad for you. So we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, damas y caballeros. Bajo carbohidratos, proteínas con moderación. Y por supuesto el snack.
Phone number o website donde las personas puedan ir a obtener más información, José, sobre...
Número de teléfono. Sorry,
My
phone
telephone
number.
number.
Yes. You said it in English and then I said it to her in Spanish. Where can people contact you, Danielle?
Our office phone number is 717, I believe it's 627-0398.
0398. And is there a website where people could go?
BMIoflancaster.com.
BMIoflancaster.com. Bueno, damas y caballeros, bmioflancaster.com o 627-0398, 627-0398. Muchísimas gracias a Capital Blue Cross por hacer posible este segmento.
Señoras y señores, queremos agradecer a la doctora Urdaneta, se acaba de comunicar con nosotros. Hay muchísimos semáforos en la ciudad de Lancaster con problemas. Aparentemente ha habido un apagón en los límites de la ciudad. Señoras y señores, policías dirigiendo el tráfico, así que tengan muchísimo cuidado en la mañana de hoy. Si están manejando en la ciudad, vamos a ver cuál es la situación, qué es lo que está sucediendo, pero nos informan que hay muchísimas luces, semáforos que no están trabajando en la ciudad, así que muchísima precaución. Dicho sea de paso, la escuela intermedia Whitland está cerrada en el día de hoy debido al incendio que hubo ayer en esa escuela, en el cuarto de donde están los calentadores del agua. Así que la escuela Whitland está cerrada en el día de hoy. Vamos a la pausa y ya volvemos con mucho más, Urdaneta.